So our friend Denise Yeargin, thank you for sitting down with us. This is our first guest.
Oh, really?
You're the very first
I had no
guest.
idea.
Yeah.
How cool is that?
We have run out of all the things that Vic and I know,
I doubt
and
that.
now we're bringing in a guest.
Well, and I was thinking this morning, very appropriate, because I don't know that I wouldn't know Deb if it weren't for you. What I do know is that I know Deb because of you
Right.
Yes.
and because of
That's
our
true.
connection. And so,
Right.
That is true.
so I think it's very appropriate that knowing how you have been the drawing point for so many people.
So many people.
And so much healing and so much growth and love.
Oh, thank you.
Oh yes, yes, for sure.
I was going to say that probably half of Nashville goes through Denise Yeargin, but then I thought that might be misconstrued.
Somebody could take that in many different ways.
But it is so true. You have become like a center of a vortex, really, of people who find their connection through you. And that in and of itself, set aside the years of ministry and music and things that you did, you were the flame around which the moths danced.
And some of those moths were kind of crazy moths, you know?
That's all right. Was that ever intentional, or was that something that happened?
You know, I became the minister by default, I will have to say, because the minister that was there got sick and left. And in the process of becoming a minister, I have always lived my life with a mountain to climb. Here's my goal. I'm going to do this. And with ministry, I thought, oh, this will be all of it. This will be the ta-da! I'm done. And when I was ordained, then I was like, okay, now what? I'm just going to minister to this little group of people right here? Not so much. Not to take anything away for that group of people, but it was like, how do I make a bigger splash? But it wasn't about me. It was about how do I take what I know to be true and share it with more people than this group of people right here.
Yes.
And so I started looking for organizations that I could become a part of. And at one point in time, I was on 7 nonprofit boards. So that probably had something to do with it.
Probably so. You were busy for several years there.
Very busy.
You were busy. Yeah.
I was a part of the mayor's Real Talks in Nashville, where we pulled hundreds of people together to talk about what was going on in Nashville and how we could come together in a peaceful, harmonious way and discuss what was going on in Nashville. And those talks went on for about a year and a half, with information being gathered and sent to the proper offices to use, if that makes sense on some level.
So in that busyness, do you think you were able to still create serenity?
Oh, most definitely. I have to. I have always, well, I can't say always, but for most of my life, I've known that I needed quiet time. Coming into Unity and learning more about meditation, I have always spent time in the morning in the quiet. Probably not in the meditative way that some people always do, but time in the quiet.
What
to
happens
be with nature.
For you in the quiet?
I find myself.
Okay.
Jack Fowler. His song has always, ever since I heard it, just been in my head. And a lot of times now, even in the early morning, I will fix myself a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and go outside. And sometimes I hear his song playing in my mind and it makes me cry, because I find myself in the birds, or in a deer that's walking through the yard, or in a leaf on the tree, or a boat coming down the Tennessee River. I find myself.
You know, one of the things that I know about Denise is that she wakes up at 2:30 in the morning, right? Now, really, really early, like what I call the middle of the night. And honestly, probably 4.
4 usually.
Usually about 4.
I like to see the moon still.
Yeah. Well, and I think what's probably really powerful about that time is that not only can you create quiet within yourself? But the world is truly quiet. Yeah.
You know, a lot of people are night owls. My partner Judy is a night owl, but I tell her it's not as quiet at midnight as it is at 4 in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
At 4 in the morning, most everybody is quiet.
Quiet.
Even the animals are quiet.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Feel
It's
quiet.
palpable. And it's like,
Yeah.
there I am. And I know I say, there I am. Right
Yeah.
there. That's me.
Yeah.
And so, what is?
You heard that sound. But that's all right. Take care of it.
I will.
We flow. We take care of it.
We do. We
Yeah.
flow and we know.
Yeah. Do you want to turn it off?
But no, I get it.
Okay.
I want to know what it feels like for you in your place when you find yourself. Because I don't know that anybody's ever asked a meditator that before.
Mm.
What does it feel like? How do you describe it?
What I can feel within myself is energy flowing. I have a very dear personal friend and mentor by the name of Brenda Julian Williams, and she is the one that taught me about the reset breath.
Mm-hmm.
And so I use it every morning. Sometimes I use it during the day when things piss me off, and sometimes things do. But I use that breath, and I can literally feel with that breath energy flowing through my body. I go out in the morning, and even if it is cold or there's snow on the ground, I go out barefoot and put my feet on the ground. And I feel that energy coming up from Mother Earth. I burn sage or something in a bowl, and I acknowledge that there is the beyond. So I feel that. You know, it wasn't always that way. And it's easier where I live now than it was in town because it's quieter.
Does it feel reassuring?
Yes, it's something that I've learned to trust, which has become a big buzzword for me because I still have a small counseling coaching business, and most of the people that I work with today are not sure that they can trust anybody. Anybody. And so I tell people the only person you really need to learn how to trust is you. The rest of it flows. If I can trust me, then I know when I'm sitting with friends that I can trust them. I also know if somebody comes up into my vortex, I get a signal, don't trust right now. I know.
What's the signal?
The signal is something in my gut that goes, don't trust.
Don't trust. Yeah. Be careful.
Be careful right here.
It feels like a clenching?
It feels like a clenching, like something has hit me in the gut. It's like, don't go there.
But the beautiful thing is that you've learned to trust that.
I have.
I think almost all of
You
us
trust,
get
I'll be
that.
right back.
Almost all of us get that, but that learning to trust it and to
Yes.
say that I'm going to go with this
Yes.
is what's powerful.
You know, I didn't trust that in the beginning. And I don't know if Vic has ever heard that story, but my mother taught me, Vic, as I was growing up, that I could fall in love with a rich man as well as I could fall in love with a poor man, and to choose wisely.
Listen carefully, dear.
Which I knew what she was meaning by that.
I've heard it said that crying in a Mercedes is easier than crying on a bicycle. Pretty much the same lesson, I think.
I chose a man that eventually was an abuser, an alcoholic. I thought I was going to be dead several times. But what I will tell you, if I back up in my story, the day that we had our wedding, and I was in my big old white hoo-ha dress that cost thousands and thousands of dollars that my mother bought from Rich Schwartz, which was the place to buy clothes back then. And I came out on my dad's arm, and we got ready to walk down the aisle with almost 800 people at this wedding. And I felt that feeling. And I know that my dad knew that I felt that feeling. Because he said, you know, you don't have to do this if you don't want to. And I said, let's just get it over with. and I walked down an aisle and married somebody with that feeling. And the next 5 years were horrendous. So I've learned to trust that feeling.
And do you think maybe if there is a gift in everything, I know the story of that marriage, and I know that it's hard to find gifts from that marriage, but if that was the gift,
it is.
You learned to never deny that.
I did.
Again.
And I can't tell you 100% that I didn't pay attention, that I did pay attention to it all the time, because there were times I really wanted something to be okay. Isn't that right? There's times that I wanted this person desperately to like me, to love me.
And I can will it so.
And if I do everything that they want, it'll be okay. Or there are jobs that I've gotten into where I really wanted to fit into this place. And I finally realized I can't.
Yeah.
I can't.
What is it that chooses that for us? That why do we want to fit into places where we do not fit?
I think it's because of our definition of what love really is.
Come on.
Well,
I was sitting here in my head going, well, it's because we're socialized, that that's the way you're supposed to be. And she comes out with, that's because we've been taught what love really is. And I'm like, lay me on the floor.
well, and I can go into the intellectual part
Right.
or the psychological part, but I grew up in the South, and I was taught that love meant that I took care of people. Now, that's what I was taught.
Right.
I don't know what everybody else in the world was taught. So therefore, even as a little girl and my friends, I would make sure everybody was okay.
Yeah.
And so therefore, my friends, as I was getting older, I made sure they were okay, even if I was miserable. In my 2 different marriages, I made sure they were okay, even if I was miserable.
And how does that connect to your years as a minister?
That's when the buttons really started getting pushed, I'll be honest with you.
Yeah.
So, okay, that's what you understood to be true about love. What have you learned, and what do you understand to be true about love now?
I have to love me first. I have to trust me first and feel what that feels like every morning when I'm in meditation. And trust that vibrational energy is not going to set me wrong on any level. And when that vibrational energy doesn't feel like that, then I know something is off. The other piece that I've had to work on is to not judge whatever that is. It's like, that doesn't mean that's wrong, it just means it's not for me right now.
I had a thought this morning while I was exercising, and that was, I have a feeling of what it feels like to look at a mortgage statement and see a balance, but I don't necessarily have a feeling of what it looks like to pay it off.
Right.
What does it look like what does it feel like to...
And have you ever thought that maybe once you can figure out what that feeling is and feel it, you will create it?
Yes. I think that is exactly the point of that you've illustrated so beautifully, of daily experiencing your home frequency in meditation, such that you know when you go out into the world and you interface with people and circumstances, if that's missing and that's not the same, then you know it's not for you, right?
Yes. You know, I know someone that has been very vital in my world helping me was Edwina Gaines, who I know you dearly love. And she taught me years ago, I didn't always follow her advice until years later, say no quicker. Denise, say no quicker. And I was like, what does she really mean by that? The minute I feel this, I say no now. That can even be something as silly as going into a restaurant and not ordering what I really want to order. And all that sounds really silly, but sometimes I have ordered something because everybody else thought it was so good, and I really had this feeling, I'm not really going to like this, And I don't like it.
Or you got sick?
Or I got sick.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what is this about? It's
Right.
me not paying attention to what I really want.
Isn't that the power of practice?
Mhm,
And the
it
power, it's
is.
kind of like when you're talking about the feeling of paying off a mortgage. Once you have that feeling, once you've experienced it either through creating it or actually having it, then doing it again comes easier, right? As I tell my students, the hardest semester is the first one where you get a 4.0.
Yes.
After that, you know that feeling and you know what it takes. So it feels like there's almost in that practice of meditation, not to reduce it to a scientific formula, but there is almost something Pavlovian.
There is.
It's like I've conditioned myself to go to that place and to feel what it feels like, and now I can trust that I can get back there again.
I think the hardest thing for me over the years was teaching what that was, because people want tangible things to hold on to. Okay, tell me what kind of chair you sit in. Tell me what kind of tea you drink. What kind of candles do you have, or what kind of incense do you burn, or how do you hold your mouth? And I'm like, no, doesn't have anything to do with that. But if you're not sitting in a chair that's comfortable for you, it's not going to work.
Yeah, move. Yep.
You know, if you're not in an environment that's comfortable for you, it's not going to work.
Yeah.
I've known a lot of women who've told me, you know, I have one little corner in my house and maybe I could put a chair there. And I'm like, it's got to be beyond you putting a chair in a corner. It's got to be somewhere that is your place.
Yeah. There's almost a ceremony to it. You're making it, you're sanctifying.
To me, it's my
this
ritual.
place.
I do every morning. And even when I'm here in Nashville these days, and at the house that we kept in Old Hickory, you know, I bring my sage bowl. I bring everything so that I have what I need to do my ritual.
So let me ask you, because you kind of led into a perfect segue opportunity here. As I was mentioning earlier to you, one of the things I've always admired about you in the years that you were the minister at Unity of Music City and the years that I've known you is that you do your work. I mean, it's hard to find a spiritual or self-help or even a really good romance novel.
It's hard to
find one that she hasn't read. And she's done her work.
You mean a human being that does their work?
It's
That's
hard
a
to
new
find.
conversation.
Exactly, that's another conversation.
And a limiting belief that I think was just uncovered in my mind.
But I've always admired the fact that you really, it's like you were serious about your spiritual journey. You took that on as this is my life. I may have a career or a profession or a hobby or a like or whatever out there, but my life is the spiritual journey. And over the last, I want to say, in my observation, 5 or 6 years, I've watched you become more and more aligned with Native American spirituality. Talk to me about that. What drew you to that and what that means to you?
Well, I think it's interesting, again, that the church was kind of, it just dumped into my lap, plopped into my lap. I always liked unity principles. But I also liked the piece that a lot of unity churches don't really adhere to, that unity is about true unity. It's about all of it. All religions. Unity.
Right.
Duh. And that Charles Fillmore, for a time when he was a boy, was raised by Native Americans. So there is a Native American flavor that permeates some of the unity principles. But in 2007, I was ordained, and I took about 6 to 8 weeks, and I cannot remember how long it was, but the church gave me that at that point in time because I had been in school and running a church for 7 years and about to hit the wall. It was like, I need to breathe. I hadn't had any vacations, no nothing. I was just wah. So I decided to spend a lot of that time with a friend of mine, Lynn Baker, in New Mexico. And he lives in a Native American trading post home that he's renovated. I didn't know anything about Native Americans in the desert. I always thought about Native Americans like in the woods or in teepee or whatever. And I spent several different times during the 6 to 8 weeks in Acoma, Pueblo. They live in like stone homes, and every morning the most wonderful, glorious thing happens before the sun rises. They have these wooden ladders that they place on the side of the houses, and they go up on the top of the house as high as they can get. And they burn incense and they play Native American flutes.
Oh my gosh.
Before the sun rises.
Before the sun rises. That's the way they greet the day. And so I got into the habit of just driving out there. I was like, this is like, can I just move in here with you all and live for the rest of my days?
Yep.
You know, they live in such a very different way because they start their day that way. So I began to go, okay, where can I find out more about these people or any people that start their day like that? Quite interestingly, when I came back home, some of you have heard about Arthur Cushman. And he was a neurosurgeon that eventually had a stroke and had to not do that anymore. And he opened Quantum Science Center in Goodlettsville. And he handpicked about 12 of us, interesting number 12, to come. For a while it was one Saturday a month, and then it became 2 Saturdays a month, and we were studying this little book, Maka Wikapi Wikohan, which is about universal and spiritual laws from Native American people.
I thought it was Cherokee for 50 Shades of Grey.
Maybe so. And quite interestingly, this had been materials until the late 90s that was not available for anybody but Native Americans. And it was actually put in print, and I made sure I had notes here, by Standing Elk of the Yankton Sioux Reservation and Grandmother Silver Star, whom some of us met that came to Unity at times. And one of the first things that I noticed, and I'll show you this, is that their calendars look like this, and there are 13 months instead of 12.
I'm going to hold that up to the camera there. So 13 months instead of, exactly, because 13 moons.
13 moons.
Yes.
The other thing that is very interesting about all of this is that with each month there is a different universal and spiritual law. There are readings every day. Remember, I said I like ritual. And so every morning part of my ritual is getting up and reading the reading for the day. There are readings that come from animals, the deer.
Right.
There are readings that come from what I call the star nations out beyond in the other dimensions. And there are readings from Buddha, Muhammad, Jesus. So I began to understand that these people had a depth of understanding unity that I had no idea about.
Wow.
And that the basic core, which has become probably my basic core, is about taking care of this amazing planet we live on, because that's what it's all about. When it boils down to the final nugget, it's not going to matter who the president is, even though it does to me right now. It's not going to matter, you know, I know we've talked about racism. A lot of this stuff is going to be moot and void if we don't take care of this planet.
Exactly.
Take care of the animals that are living on it, take care of everything. And so I studied with Arthur Cushman probably for about 5 years, meeting at least once a month, if not twice a month, and became immersed in this reading. And it totally changed who I was. There were moments when I kept thinking maybe I need to step down as the minister because I don't know that I'm Unity anymore.
Right. Right.
And you were there enough to know that there were times when I added a Native American flavor and people would like it. But then I would have people say, we really want to know what Unity says about this. And I'm like, Unity would say this about this.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Because one of the things that I've always loved about Unity and Charles Fillmore is that he reserved the right to change his mind.
Yeah.
He said that.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that in this day and age, he would have gone more in that direction.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do to make sure that everybody on the planet is okay?
Right.
Has what they need.
That's what they need.
Not just people, but animals and the waters and everything.
Not just that everybody on the planet has the same thing.
No, but
everybody has what they need
Right.
to thrive.
Because the Native Americans truly believe that there's enough food on the planet to feed everybody.
Well, there is.
There is. Of
That
course.
there's enough ways to take care of all the animals. That there is enough for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
We just don't live that way.
Right. Right.
Because of
Somebody's making a big gain somewhere.
Yeah, because of money. Follow the money. Yeah. Well, let me.
So does that answer your question?
Yes.
That's how
Yes.
I got into that, and I got to a point to where I just could not back away from it anymore. It felt like the truth.
So let me ask you. Let me kind of go a step further with that. I teach in American literature. I teach Thomas Paine, and he has an essay called "The Age of Reason," and in that, he's kind of he wasn't a big fan of organized religion by any stretch, and in that he says that ultimately, if you want to know the Creator, you have to look at the creation.
Mm-hmm.
And I have told my students over the years, in other words, Paine was telling us, if you want to know God,
Yes.
look at a microscope or a telescope or take a walk in the woods.
Yes.
And so is that, do you think, I don't know that I would ever say that nature or connecting with nature is the only doorway to God, life in your experience, but it's certainly one of the most powerful.
It's one of the most powerful. So I've tried to go through many other doors.
Mm-hmm.
The other piece I want to bring up is about all the waves of creation, the consciousness waves.
Mm-hmm.
And my deduction of what is happening in our world today is we are having some conflicting consciousness waves. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty obvious. I have bought into this process called the 9 waves of creation, and we are beginning the 9th wave. But we also have running on our planet right now the 6th wave, which is good and evil, right and wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
We have the 7th wave, which is industrial revolution, and that's still pretty strong.
Mm-hmm.
We have the 8th wave, which is technology,
Mm-hmm.
and what would we do without that?
Mm-hmm.
And the 9th wave, guess what it is? Unity,
love.
harmony, love, joy, peace, the Aquarian age. And that's trying to come in with all of this other stuff. And I see it so readily right now at the river. I don't have regular television, which is a blessing, but I do occasionally see a news something and I'll go, what? Okay, that's just that wave shooting out here. You know, it's like that, all of that has to eventually, waves come in like this, and then they eventually have to do that. And I think that 6th wave of good and evil and bad and good, and I think that's beginning to go, but it's going to take conversations.
It feels like it's crashing on the shore right now.
It's going to take conversations.
Yeah.
You know, and even the Industrial Revolution, you know, I know a lot of industry is crashing and burning right now, and isn't it supposed to, probably?
Mm-hmm.
And are we all going to get back to living close to the earth and growing our own food? I don't know. I don't know that. But I know that we've got to find a way to make it work for everybody.
And maybe that's what we see crashing is the forms of industry, the forms of technology, the forms of thought that do not work for everyone and provide space for the love that we truly are.
Yes.
So, at the same time, you know, when you say that the level of good and evil, And yet we see a lot of creation happening on this planet that does not feel good.
It looks evil.
Mm-hmm.
It looks evil, and it definitely creates harm for people. And what I'm thinking about predominantly is racism.
Yes.
So, how do you sort of negotiate when you know that there are effects that are very real, that are very felt, and that are experienced and seen and can be measured, but yet this wave is phasing out,
Yes.
which means it's not real?
It's in consciousness.
Okay.
You know, it's kind of like one of the groups that I got really involved in for years was called One Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
Started that with Enoch Fuzz. And there were times when I said to him, I'm not sure why I come to all these meetings because I don't know really what my purpose is. And he said, you're just there to be the love, honey.
Mm-hmm.
And I sat through many occasions where there would be contractors that were getting ready to take a whole street of people's homes and turn it into something else. And people would be crying. And I was like, what am I supposed to say? And I remember one day I reached across the table and grabbed a woman's hand. And then I looked at the man who was telling her that she could just move to Mount Juliet.
Mm-hmm.
And she was saying, you know, my doctors, my children grew here, up here, I don't. And I said, would you say that to your mother? He didn't know what to say to me. I don't know that that stopped anything.
Right.
But I think that all of us are going to have to find that level of love inside ourselves so that we can sit in those difficult places and be the ones that start those conversations.
Yes.
Now, you know, some of them I don't want to be in the middle of, I'll be honest.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to have to be brave enough and trust ourselves enough to know that this one is mine to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I can be the love here.
And to just have that capacity to see every person as your mother, every person as your sister, every person as your brother or child. That in and of itself has to be, when you're talking about these waves of consciousness, that would have to be more of a ninth wave.
Most
concept,
definitely. If we really were at the ninth wave, which is peace and love and joy and harmony, we wouldn't be worrying about evil.
Right.
You know, I know that because of what the world looks like right now, it's hard to imagine. Hard to imagine peace and love and joy. Garden of Eden, utopia. But I would imagine that 100 years ago, it would be hard to imagine what we're doing now.
So let me ask a question, if I may.
Please.
The ninth wave thing, you know, I was going to kind of tell a joke and say, well, the problem is I'm on the ninth wave and all these other sites are on the sixth.
Yes.
But the truth is that it led me to a serious question. And that is how to be, this is kind of an in the world but not of the world kind of thing. And there's, what if we are striving towards, we're starting to be pulled into the wave of peace and harmony and love and light and joy, and real world damage and harm is still being carried out by people on the sixth and seventh wave and whatever.
And that's what's happening.
And how do we balance that?
We have to be the love, always. And that's the hardest thing in the world because there's times I want to just slap people.
Right.
You know? I mean, seriously.
Well, what dawned on me in this moment was it goes right back to what we were talking about with either the feeling of having the mortgage or the feeling of paying off the mortgage. You have to be able to cultivate in your own time and space the feeling of unconditional love so that you can rely on it in those times when please smack my face steps in front of you. In order to create it, you have to be able to feel it in the face of adversity.
And you know, I would actually like to hear what Deb has to say about this because I think about you a lot, Deb, my sister Deb. You know, I'm living now in a place where what I can tell you is when I walk out my back door onto my deck, which you've been there, there is no pandemic, there is no racial issues, there is no anything. It's just me and the river and lovely, wonderful things. And I know that living here in Nashville is different than that.
Yes.
Because even when I come here, sometimes I feel it. It's like pricklies on my skin. And it's like, how do you get to that place of knowing when to hold them and when to fold them? When do I say something and how much do I say? And is that producing more love or more hate or more fear or more?
And that's where it's the constant rub. And I don't know that I have an answer. This is the art of the spiritual journey, is that you always have to pay attention.
Yes.
You have to pay attention, because being the love is a nice phrase.
Yes.
But understanding what that looks like in a million different situations. If my brother is standing here and someone who wants to harm him is right there, being the love may mean getting between them.
Yes, it does. And love.
Tough love, right?
Yeah.
Being the love. And so that we have a tendency to hear being the love and think of it as a very soft, warm, and fuzzy thing.
Yes, and it's not. That's why when I said a while ago we have to know how to be the love, that's the hugest obstacle any of us have all day, every day, starting with ourselves.
And if we can do that in the gentlest way possible, I believe that's the high road most of the time. I mean, that's the gentlest way that I can be the love in this moment. But sometimes the gentlest way is pretty firm. For that,
well, I think we have to remember who we're there for. Like the day that I was in that meeting, I knew I was there for that woman.
Right.
I wasn't necessarily there for that man. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And I'm sure what I said to him, he didn't appreciate. I can tell you he didn't appreciate it. I didn't say anything really rude or ugly. I hope he went home and thought about it before he took her house and plowed it over. But, the bottom line is, I was there for her.
It's anti-bullying 101,
yes.
right? When the number one rule is, when you see someone being bullied, forget the bully. Turn to the victim and say, what can I do for you? How can I go? Are you okay? And exactly.
At the same time, I think you issued him a beautiful invitation.
I did.
To snap into something that he could possibly associate with love, which is his mother. Would you say that to your mother? Now, what he did with it is
I
his
have
choice.
No idea.
Right. But I think you were very much there for both of them by saying that.
But that was more tough, what I said to him, than reaching out and grabbing her hand while she was crying.
Beautiful thing about love is, I see the love shot in both directions.
Yes.
You didn't belittle him. You simply asked him a question so that he had an opportunity to align with something that he could possibly have known as love. Now, I think that that's another thing that I was hearing you say, and you correct me if I'm wrong, is that it's about the discernment to be able to say, what is the love here? What is the love here? Well, in each given moment, as we shift and as we see different circumstances, to be able to see love showing up differently.
Well, and remember, I have to start with that place inside me. Yeah. And so I could have gone many different directions in that one meeting. But I could stay in my vibrational energy with what I did. I could have told him things that we don't want on tape. You could. Because I felt them at times, and I was like, okay, that's contrary to what I want to keep right here.
Yeah, and in order to be able to deliver that message to him, you have to hold it first. That toxicity.
Because he was used to people screaming and hollering at him. Right. He's one of those people that tears down people's homes to build greater things, whatever he thinks are greater things.
Well, and that's the thing about showing up as love, is we will send out ripples that we can never follow. That man may still go to sleep every night and think about that phrase, think about that question.
I hope
we don't
so.
know. Yeah, he may still and at times feel the knot in his own gut that says, would you do this to your own mother? He has now been presented with that question, and he can never unknow what he got in that moment.
Right.
So,
if we could think about that with everything we do, would I do this to the water? Would I do this to the air? Would I do this to somebody I love?
Right. Exactly.
What's most important to you now?
I would have to say peace inside me. I would have many years ago talked about being happy or joyful, but I think this level of peace that I have now is pretty unswaying. It just is there. You know, some of that comes with age. I will have to admit that it does.
Sure.
But I just think that knowing that I know that this is me right here. This right here is me. That I don't have to be anything else but that.
Yes.
And, you know, I sent you all something that Alicia Keys had written, and I think that I spent so many years covering up this because I thought I had to be something for somebody else. And to get back to who you really are, maybe noticing my blonde is leaving my hair. And I was in a conversation the other day with a woman at my house that said, what happened to your hair? I said, well, it's what's not happening to my hair. I've decided that I'm not going to color it anymore.
Right.
Why? Because I'm just going to quit covering up who I really am.
Right.
And I said, that might sound weird to you, but this is my process, my practice.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm looking at me. Oh,
Yeah.
This is really you. Look in the mirror. Lord mercy. Where did that woman come from?
Yeah.
You know?
Vic and I have talked about that idea of, well, you know, I'm 56. If I'm not going to be myself now, when is it going to start?
When can I be myself?
At what point do you finally go, enough?
You know, and I truly believed, honestly, that when I got to Unity and became a minister that I would be me. Well, no, because there's all kinds of other hoops and policies and procedures you have to follow to be in alignment with the association, and there's nothing wrong with all
and
that.
And then the pressures from every one of your congregants to show up a certain way.
It's like, after a while, it's like, who am I? Where did I go in the process? Yeah. So, I mean, you could do the same thing at a college where you can do it anywhere. It's like, I've got to, if love is the most important thing, and I think it is, to me, I have to be peaceful to be able to share love. But it's like, if love is the most important thing, I have to love me first. And if I don't know who I am, as I've said many, many times on Sunday morning, Jesus said there was only one commandment. Love God, love your neighbor as yourself. And most of our neighbors are shit out of luck.
Yeah.
Because we don't love ourselves. And if I only love my neighbor as much as I love me,
exactly.
That's why some of us have struggled so many times, either with us or with the person who's trying to love us, that can only love us as much as they love themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Let me ask you a question.
Okay.
I know you've had a lot of people who've influenced you over your life and your spiritual journey. If you had to throw away all teachers except one, who's the one?
That laugh. I live for it.
Well, you know, if you had asked me that even a week ago, I would have said something different. And I don't even know that I can say this woman's name, but she reminds me of my grandmother, except for my grandmother was white and she is black. Alanya Van Zandt.
Oh, yes.
You know, on Sundays, I don't always tune into anything. Sometimes I find something that's out there. And I watched an Oprah thing with her on Sunday, this last Sunday. And she was talking about trust. And to me, that's getting down to the nitty gritty of what it's about. Loving and trusting me. Because we say we've got to trust God. Well, what is that? And we got to trust others. Well, Lord mercy.
Right.
And we got to trust life. Well, I got to start with me. And that's the journey. And what does it take me to trust me? Well, first, what I realized after I listened to her talk is I've got to know the real me without all the coverings.
Right. Don't we? I mean, I know I hide from myself.
Well, sure.
More than anybody else. I put on the veneer for the world, and then I realized that I forgot to take it off. And it becomes, and that, when I know the most powerful moments I've ever had are naked honesty in the mirror.
Yes.
Not that I'm naked, but naked honesty in the
Well,
mirror.
and that can work
And
too.
that could work too.
You know, one of the things she said, and actually when she said it, Vic, your face came in front of me, so I'm going to say this. She said that until you get real with you and trust you, you won't ever step into what is yours to do.
Mm.
And if you don't step into it with a little bit of pee running down your leg, it's not big enough.
Received.
And I was like, I get that. You know, whatever is mine to do, because I think the things like the day that I reached out and grabbed that woman's hand and out came what I said to that man, I didn't practice that.
Right.
Or know I was going to say that. Or even have any idea why I was there. That's the bigness that she was talking about in every moment. What is yours? So,
what would love do now?
What would love do now?
So, if you had 5 minutes to speak to the entire multiverse, did you write it out?
well,
I love it.
I did some.
What would be the most important for you to say?
So I went in 2 different directions, because the first thing came from me listening to her. Do the things that bring you the most peace, the most joy, that creates the most love, whatever that is to you, and stop hiding your own light. But the other thing that came to me is this, and I actually posted it on my High Vibration Zone because it's part of what I've been doing my own personal study. Many of us study spiritual enlightenment, expecting it to lead us onward and upward, hoping to become better people than we think we are, and hoping to gather all the important tools to assist us on the way. And at some point, we begin to realize the path isn't onward and upward. It is inward and deeper than anything we have ever expected. We aren't gathering, we're letting go. And the real answers come when we stop covering up who we really are.
Yes.
That to me is in a nutshell where I feel like I went whoppy-jawed off in a strange direction for a while in myself. It's like I've got to let go more than grab onto.
Yeah.
And that's a scary thought on some level sometimes. How do I know that it's time to let this go? This job, this house, this life, this whatever it is.
Right.
This person, this whatever. My gut, which leads me back to what we started with.
Yeah, so when you said that, I just thought, there's nothing to grab on. There's nothing to grab for. It's all about releasing so that the love that we are can just be.
Can just radiate out to everything.
Can just be. And everything that we grab for, we're putting in front of that love a lot of times. So it just blocks it.
Yeah.
How powerful.
Yeah.
You know, I'm sitting here thinking that if we could live from a space of, in every moment, what is the most important thing right now? And is there ever a moment where love would not be the answer?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Yeah.
You know, of course, we're getting ready for Thanksgiving.
Love in the form of what is it? Sweet potato casserole.
Sweet potato casserole.
Love in the form of peach cobbler.
But I will say in our family, there has been a shift or a movement. And Logan, my oldest son, and his wife Vicki are going to have Thanksgiving dinner at their house, and we're all going there, and we're all taking stuff.
Fantastic.
And this is the first time.
That's a big shift for
So it's
your family, I know.
huge. And it's going to be my family and their dad and some of his family, so we're all coming together, and it's going to be beautiful.
It's going to be beautiful.
And my mother and daddy are going to enjoy it at 88.
Well, and I don't. You can really talk about something you hold on to, are those family traditions that you can't let go of and allow to convert naturally into something new. Good for Logan and Vicki.
Yes, I'm thrilled that she jumped out there and did that. Yes.
speaking of gratitude,
Mm-hmm.
just gratitude for our teachers
Yes.
in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And Denise, I'm grateful for your teachers
Thank you.
because your teachers have taught you, and I know how much I've learned from you.
Thank you.
So seriously,
Thank you.
I'm grateful for your teachers.
Mm-hmm.
I'm grateful for your teachers. Right? I mean, we're all doing this together.
Yes.
Such that we can come to consensus with something better than we had yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and such beautiful thoughts today.
Thank you.
Oh,
Yes.
Well, it was my pleasure being here.
It's you are our virgin guest.
Yay! I've not been called a virgin in many, many years. Woo!
You see, this is where we go immediately.
I loved it. So on that note, we're wishing
Yes.
you and yours a very, very happy Thanksgiving, and we look forward to seeing you in the holidays.
Bye.
Bye for now.